All right, so we are back for another deep dive, and this time we are tackling superhero movies,
Oh, yeah.
and specifically the curious case of the Marvels. I mean,
Yeah.
Captain Marvel, the first one, soared to $1 billion at the box office.
Yeah.
What happened to the sequel? It kind of nosedived.
Right.
There's a lot of us scratching our heads.
No, it really is a head scratcher. And I think it's important to remember that, these superhero films,
Yeah,
they're not just popcorn entertainment anymore, right?
right.
These are high stakes gambles with budgets that would make even a Wall Street tycoon
Oh, yeah,
sweat a little bit.
definitely.
So when one of these movies flops, the financial ripple effect is huge.
So we're talking big money here.
Big money.
But is it just a case of audiences being tired of sequels, or is there something else going on?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
There's this chatter in Hollywood that the Marvels may have secretly cost way more than Disney initially admitted. Yeah, something like $378 million, which dwarfs the officially announced $274 million budget.
Wait, hold up. How does a movie's cost magically inflate like that? Did they accidentally order a solid gold craft services table?
Uh-huh. No, not quite. It all boils down to Hollywood accounting, which is notoriously,
Right.
shall we say, creative.
Creative, yes.
You've got these marketing blitzes that cost a fortune, right? You got those inevitable reshoots that eat up more of the budget, and then just a bunch of other hidden expenses that magically appear along the way.
So basically, it's like trying to decipher ancient hieroglyphics,
Yeah,
but instead of unlocking secrets of the past, you're just trying to figure out where all the money went.
exactly. And if those whispered figures about the Marvels are accurate, we're
Right.
looking at one of the most expensive movies ever made.
Wow.
No pressure.
Yikes. Talk about high stakes.
High stakes.
And speaking of expensive, let's talk about the cast.
Yeah.
You've got big names like Samuel L. Jackson, Brie Larson. Those paychecks aren't exactly pocket change.
No, they are not very true. And that brings up an interesting point about these cinematic universes,
Okay.
which for anyone unfamiliar are basically these sprawling, interconnected storylines that span multiple movies and shows.
So like one giant superhero soap opera.
You could say that, but think about it. You might have a character that pops up for, a brief cameo in one film.
Right.
But because they're part of this larger universe,
Yeah.
their contract could cover numerous future appearances.
Oh, wow.
That can really inflate costs for studios.
So it's like signing a superhero to a multi-year contract, even if they only show up for like 5 minutes of screen time.
Exactly.
So are you saying that these interconnected universes are actually hurting these films financially?
It's certainly a factor to consider.
Okay.
When you're juggling so many characters and storylines, the budget can balloon quickly,
Right.
and the financial risk just skyrockets.
It's like trying to build a house of cards.
But each card is made of solid gold and has a different superhero's face on it.
Right.
One wrong move and the whole thing collapses.
And then you're left with a pile of expensive glittery cardboard.
Exactly.
Speaking of potential collapses,
Yeah.
there's been this whole debate swirling around the Marvels about representation
Right.
and whether it impacted the film's performance.
Right. Representation in superhero films is definitely a hot topic these days.
It is.
And some folks are saying that the Marvels, maybe tried to push a certain agenda,
Okay.
and that alienated a portion of the core audience.
Interesting.
They point to the way the female characters were presented as evidence.
Okay.
But it's a complex issue with a lot of different perspectives,
Yeah. So it's not as simple as saying like girl power equals box office gold.
Right, not necessarily. I mean, while some female-led superhero movies have been massive hits,
Yeah.
it's important to remember that box office success is influenced by a whole bunch of factors.
Right.
We can't oversimplify it.
It's like trying to solve a multi-dimensional puzzle, except the pieces are constantly changing shape.
Exactly.
But hey, remember how Captain Marvel was a smash hit?
Yeah.
Some folks are arguing that its success was more about riding the wave of Avengers hype
Yeah.
than anything else.
That's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, can a film be too connected to a larger franchise?
Oh,
Like, sure, it might benefit in the short term from that association,
right.
but what happens when it has to stand on its own 2 feet?
It's like a superhero needing training wheels even after they've already learned to fly.
Right. Exactly.
Speaking of things that might need a little extra support, let's talk about Brie Larson's casting.
Oh, yeah.
There's been a lot of chatter about that,
Yeah.
with some even suggesting that another actress like Kaley Cuoco might have been a better fit.
Yeah, casting is a make-or-break decision for any film.
Right.
But especially for these superhero movies where the characters are so iconic,
Yeah.
it's not just about acting chops.
No.
It's about embodying the spirit of the character and connecting with the audience.
It's like trying to find the perfect key to unlock a character's potential.
Yes.
The wrong key, and the door just won't open.
It won't open.
And some fans have argued that Marvel has been fumbling with the keys when it comes to writing strong female characters lately, contrasting them with Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow.
Yeah, this raises a good question.
Okay.
What does a well-written female character in this genre actually look like?
It's a good question.
Is it about being conventionally attractive? Is it about having superpowers, or is it something else entirely?
Yeah, it's more than just wearing a cape and kicking butt, right?
Right.
There needs to be depth and complexity to make a character truly resonate with the audience.
Absolutely.
But some people are saying that the Marvels got so caught up in trying to make a statement that it forgot to focus on what fans actually wanted from a superhero movie.
It seems like there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got the film's huge budget, the casting choices that spark debate.
Right. And the potential for audiences to be experiencing superhero fatigue, it all adds up to a pretty complicated picture.
Definitely.
It's tough to pinpoint one single reason why the movie underperformed.
It's like a detective trying to solve a case, but all the clues point in different directions.
Exact.
But aside from the budget and the casting controversies, were there other criticisms of the film itself?
Well, one thing that kept popping up in reviews was that the film felt a bit overstuffed.
Okay.
Like there were just too many characters and storylines crammed in there.
So it's like they tried to make a superhero buffet, but instead of a delicious spread, it was just a big, messy pile of food.
Exactly. Some critics argued that it lacked the focus and clarity of its predecessor.
Okay.
And then there was the CGI.
Yes, the visual effects. Was it a case of too much of a good thing?
Some viewers felt that way.
Okay.
They argued that the special effects were overused and sometimes even distracting.
Interesting.
They felt it took away from the emotional heart of the story. It's like they were so busy creating a dazzling light show that they forgot to make us care about the characters behind the spectacle.
Right.
But hey, it wasn't all bad news, right? There were some positive reviews, weren't there?
Absolutely. Aman Vellani, who plays Kamala Khan, received a ton of praise for her performance.
Oh, good.
Critics highlighted her energy and how relatable she made a teenage superhero feel.
So she was like the breath of fresh air in the movie.
Yes.
The spark that reminded everyone why we love superhero stories in the first place.
Exactly. And there were other bright spots, too.
Okay.
The chemistry between Brie Larson and Teyonah Parris was a highlight for a lot of viewers.
Yeah.
They brought a sense of fun and friendship to the film, which was a nice counterpoint to all the chaos.
So amidst all the tangled plot lines and explosions, there were moments of genuine connection and humor.
There were.
But we can't ignore the box office numbers, right?
Right.
The Marvels didn't exactly break any records.
That's true. And as we discussed, there are probably several factors that contributed to that. We've got the massive budget, the mixed reviews, and the possibility that audiences are starting to feel superhero fatigue.
It's like a superhero suddenly losing their powers.
Yeah.
They're still wearing the costume, but they just can't fly anymore.
Exactly.
So does this flop spell doom for the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
It's definitely a wake-up call for Marvel Studios.
Okay.
They can't keep relying on the same formula forever.
Right.
They need to find ways to innovate surprise audiences and tell stories that resonate on a deeper level.
They need to level up their superhero game or risk becoming a relic of the past.
Right.
But this isn't just a Marvel problem, is it?
No.
The entire superhero genre seems to be at a crossroads.
You're absolutely right. We've reached peak superhero.
Yeah.
Audiences are bombarded with superhero content everywhere they look.
Everywhere.
It's no wonder they're becoming more discerning,
Right.
more demanding.
It's like we've been gorging on superhero candy for years, and now our sweet tooth is starting to ache. So what's the solution? Do we need a superhero detox, or is there a way to reignite that magic?
Maybe it's time for studios to take some risks.
Okay.
To explore new genres and formats within the superhero framework.
Okay.
To tell stories that challenge conventions and push the boundaries a little further.
It's like they need to break free from the mold and unleash their creative superpowers.
Exactly.
But before we get too carried away, let's bring it back to the Marvels.
Okay.
Was it a complete disaster, or was it simply a flawed but ambitious attempt to do something different with the genre?
That's a question each viewer needs to answer for themselves, really.
Right.
It's a subjective experience.
Yeah.
But regardless of your personal opinion, the Marvels does offer a valuable case study.
A case study in how not to make a superhero movie.
Not necessarily. It highlights the challenges and opportunities
Okay.
facing the superhero genre as it navigates an increasingly complex cultural landscape.
Right.
It reminds us that even with superpowers, success is never guaranteed.
It's a sobering thought. Even superheroes can stumble.
They can.
But hey, they always get back up right.
They do.
Maybe the Marvels will inspire a new generation of filmmakers to tell bolder, more innovative superhero stories.
I hope so. The potential is definitely there. But ultimately, it's up to the audience to decide what kind of superhero stories they want to see. Their choices will shape the future of the genre.
It's funny, we often talk about these superhero movies as these grand clashes between good and evil.
Right.
But when you strip away all the costumes and the special effects, you realize it's also a business.
Absolutely.
Like a big business.
A big business. And the business of superheroes has become this massive, intricate machine.
Yeah.
It's not just about ticket sales anymore.
Right.
You got merchandising, licensing agreements, theme park tie-ins.
Oh, yeah.
It's a whole multimedia empire built around these characters.
Like those superhero action figures we had as kids suddenly grew up, got MBAs, and took over Wall Street.
Exactly.
But with all this pressure to please shareholders and rake in those profits, does it stifle the creative side of things? Are we sacrificing good stories for bigger box office returns?
That's the tightrope walk that these studios have to navigate. You need to make money to keep the lights on, of course.
Right.
But you can't lose sight of the artistry that made these characters resonate with people in the first place.
It's a delicate balance, for sure.
It is.
But amidst all the talk about box office numbers and profit margins, it's easy to forget that there are actual human beings behind all this.
Right.
We have these talented actors, writers, directors, visual effects artists, all these people pouring their hearts and souls into these projects.
Absolutely. They're passionate about bringing these stories to life.
And speaking of passionate people, we can't forget the fans.
The fans.
They're the lifeblood of this whole superhero phenomenon.
Absolutely. Their enthusiasm is what fuels the hype.
Right.
It drives the box office, and ultimately it shapes the direction that these franchises take.
Their voices matter, for better or for worse.
They do.
It's like they're this invisible force field protecting the superhero universe.
Right.
But let's be real, fandom can be a double-edged sword sometimes.
Oh, definitely. Passion can turn toxic pretty quickly online.
Yeah.
Sadly, we've seen instances of harassment, cyberbullying, even threats.
Wow.
Directed at actors, writers, directors who dare to deviate from what some fans think should happen.
It's like they forget that these are real people with feelings.
Right.
Not just fictional characters they can control.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that we all need to cultivate a more respectful and inclusive fan culture.
Definitely.
One that celebrates creativity and diversity without resorting to negativity and hate.
Well said. Ultimately, we're all here because we have this shared love for these characters, these stories, this whole world of superheroes. Let's not lose sight of that amidst all the noise.
Amidst all the noise, yeah.
It's a good reminder that even with all the financial pressures, the creative differences, and occasional fan backlash, the heart of the superhero genre is still beating strong.
Yeah.
And that's something worth celebrating.
It really is. Who knows what the future holds?
Yeah.
Maybe we're on the verge of a new golden age of superhero storytelling.
Ooh.
One that balances artistic vision with financial success.
Right.
One that inspires, challenges, and entertains us all.
That's a hopeful thought. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the Marvels and this fascinating and often complex world of superhero movies. We hope you've enjoyed the journey as much as we have.
And remember, the conversation doesn't end here. Keep exploring, keep questioning, keep embracing the power of imagination. That's what makes superheroes so enduring, so captivating, so well.